Hey everyone, welcome back to Mode Bespoke. I'm Atenas. For today's project, we are going to crochet the pine Afghan. Now this is a fairly easy project to crochet, so if you're a beginner, you should be able to make this project. If you want the full list of materials, visit the blog. The link is in the description box below. Let's get started. So this is what our pattern will look like once we have completed the blanket. It's just a little easier to explain it with the blanket already completed, so we'll go through and do all the stitching here in a minute. But this blanket is reversible, so you'll be able to see the pine design on both sides of the blanket. You're going to do one row of the pine pattern. So this is made up of multiples of 18. So this one section is 18 stitches, as you can see here in the diagram. So it's 18, and then you multiply it by however many trees you want. So it'll be the tree in the middle, and then you just repeat over and over again. So I made my pattern 10, I wanted 10 of these trees up at the top. So it's 10 times the 18 stitches for a beginning or initial stitch of 180 stitches. So 10 times 18, 180. That's how wide my blanket is. This blanket measures about 42 by 56 inches. That's about 117 by 132 centimeters. You can make this as big or small as you want. That is entirely up to you. The materials I listed for the pattern is for a blanket in this same size. So we're going to be working in half double crochets, and this is throughout the entire work. So we're also going to be doing a lot of color switching. So let's just get started here with a pattern. I'm using a G hook, which is a 4.25 millimeter hook. And I'm just going to use the diagram. So this diagram is available on the pattern. The link to the pattern is in the description box below. You can also purchase the printable pattern, and it comes with a full page PDF and a full page diagram as well. So we're going to use two different color yarns. I am using blue and white. They just are a lot easier to see than this green one. So it's a little easier to film with the blue and white. But you will need two colors. I used 5 skeins of the green, which is thyme, and then I almost used 2 skeins of Aran. I used 1 full skein, so I put 2 on the pattern. So you may need to, depending on how loose or how tight you crochet, and also how you choose to carry your yarn. So let's get started here. We're going to have to begin with a slip knot. So wrap the yarn around 2 fingers, and you're going to insert your hook into that loop. Now you're going to pull some yarn right through the loop like so, and then I just kind of hold it down with my index finger, and then you can remove the fingers on your left hand and tighten your knot. So then just pull on the threads and you can tighten your slip knot. So now, like I said, we're going to be working in multiples of 18. So and it's just 18, not 18 plus 1 or 18 plus anything. Nope, just 18. So I'm going to start with my chain. For those who don't know how to make a chain, this is what you're going to do. Let me zoom in real quick. You're going to yarn over. So wrap the yarn around your hook. So we go yarn over, and you're going to pull this loop through this bottom loop. So pull the top loop through the bottom loop, there we go, and that's a chain. Yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through. So I'll keep crocheting a chain of 18 stitches. If you need to pause the video to make your chain, go ahead and do that, and I'll see you again in just a moment. So here's my chain. I crocheted 18 stitches for this because I'm only going to do one. I'm going to show you how to do the diagram. So if we look at our diagram, you're going to see some numbers. So let me zoom in a bit. So the numbers here that you see on the right and on the left, these tell you the row. The numbers on the bottom are for your stitch number. So we start reading this from right to left, and then we're going to be working just regular crochet, so we're going to be turning our work around, but we're always going to read it right to left. Our first two rows are going to be in one color, then row 3 is in a different, 4 is in a different, 5 is in a different, and then we work the pine design. So let's start with these 2 rows, which we're going to work in the blue. So to start, the very first stitch we have to do, we have to chain 1. So this is the beginning of our first row. And now we're going to work a half double crochet in the second stitch from your hook. So yarn over, and then just hold this down with your index finger. Insert your hook into the stitch, so into the second stitch from your hook. Yarn over, and then pull your hook out. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. And now you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And that's a half double crochet. So let's do this again. Yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, so that one right there. Yarn over and pull your hook out. And now you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So this is the stitch we're going to use for the entire project. The only difference is going to be the color switches. So crochet a half double crochet in every stitch of your chain. Pause the video if you need to, and I'll see you again in just a moment. So here I am at the very last stitch of my row, and there's my last half double crochet, and there we go, our row is complete. Now for the next row, we're going to start with a chain 1, and then you're going to turn your work around, and starting in the very first stitch of the row, so look for your very first half double crochet and the stitch right above it, so this one, that's where you're going to start. So you're going to make your first half double crochet in the first stitch of the row. So yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch. So there we go. And then pull your hook out, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. And you're going to do the same thing you did for the last row and crochet a half double crochet in every stitch of your row. So just keep making a half double crochet. Pause the video if you need to. I'll see you again when I finish the row. And here we are at the end. So this is the very last half double crochet. It's going to be a little bit hidden, so just look out for it, or count. You can also count the number of stitches. So just make sure you crochet a half double crochet in the very last stitch of the row so you can keep your stitch count even, and then you're all set to go. So here are my first 2 rows, and here's my diagram. So we've done row 1 and row 2. Now we have to do row 3, and we're going to do our very first color switch. So I'm going to switch to my white yarn. So as you can see here, I've got the greens, and then we have the white rows, and then green. And the reason that the diagram is inverted, the colors are inverted to what my blanket is because it's a lot easier to see the diagram when these are the colors. I tried switching them so that they match the blanket, but they were really very difficult to see when the entire project was green. So I hope that doesn't confuse anybody. Okay, so let's start row number 3 with a chain 1. And now we're going to turn our work around, and we have to add our second color. So I'm going to get this white yarn and leave a nice long tail of yarn. We're going to yarn over, so we're going to make a loop on our hook, and then we're going to pass the white loop through the blue loop, like so. So now we have to carry the blue yarn throughout this entire row. So to do that, grab the blue yarn and just lay it over your stitches. So just lay it over the work that you just did. And then here, let's let go of the little tail end of the white yarn. And we're going to make our very first half double crochet again in the first stitch of the row. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, and then just make sure your blue thread is laying on top of the row. And then we yarn over, pull through all 3, and there's our first half double crochet. Now I'm going to tighten the little tail end of the white yarn here. And then throughout the entire row, just hold your blue thread on top. And every couple of stitches, you may want to tighten it a little bit, just to make sure it's not too loose and it's not going to pop out through the white stitches. The reason we are carrying the yarn is because in row number 4 is going to be in blue or green or whatever color you chose. So we have to go back to the blue yarn. So it's a lot easier if we just carry the blue yarn all the way through to the end of the row. And that way it's easier to just switch colors again. So that's what it'll look like. You can't see your blue thread at all. It's hidden under the white stitches. So just continue to crochet a half double crochet while carrying your blue yarn. I'll see you when we get to the end of the row. So I'm on my last stitch. Remember that the last stitch may be a little difficult to see. And then just hold down your blue thread. So there it is. It's a little easier to see it on the side. So just hold it over. And then just finish your half double crochet, like so. So there is row number 3. For row number 4, we need to switch back to the blue. So since we carry the yarn, it's going to be pretty easy. We're going to chain 1, and then we're going to turn our work around. And now we're going to switch to the blue yarn. So the white yarn, we're going to carry it in this row. So lay it flat above your stitches, grab your blue thread, and then just yarn over, insert your hook into the first stitch, and then you're going to complete your half double crochet. And you've switched colors. Pull on the white yarn to tighten it a little bit, and that way it'll hide the stitch a little bit better. And then just continue working a half double crochet in every stitch of the row. Don't forget to just hold your yarn, so check on it every now and then. Hold it above the stitches you're working into, and every couple of stitches just give it a little tug. Make sure that it is hidden in your work, because if you leave it really loose, it'll start to pop through the blue stitches and you'll be able to see it. So just give it a little tug, and then just light. Don't pull on it too hard. If you pull on it too hard, it's going to curl up your work like this. So don't pull it too hard. You just want to give it a little tug just to make sure that the white thread has been pulled through. So just keep crocheting a half double crochet until you get to the end of the row, and then you're going to repeat another color switch for row number 5, and then complete row 6 and 7 in blue. And I'll see you when we get to row number 8. So if you need to see this again, just back the video up a little bit, just rewind it a little, and you'll be able to see the color switch again. But complete your rows up through row number 8, and I'll see you again in just a moment. So I've completed rows 1 through 8. So as you can see, I added another repetition of the white stripe, and then I did 2 rows in blue. So now we're in row 8, and we're going to start working our first pine tree. So we need to crochet 17 stitches in blue because stitch number 18 is in white. Oh, sorry, I switched to the wrong picture there by accident. Okay, so we need to stitch in blue, so we're going to have to carry our white thread for about the first 16 stitches, and then stitch number 17 is going to be where we start the color switch. So chain 1, and then hold your white yarn over your row. So once we get to the end of the row, we need to have access to this white yarn. That's why we're going to have to carry it. So starting in the very first stitch of the row, crochet 16 half double crochets. I know we need 17, but our color switch is going to be on stitch number 17, so that by the time we get to stitch 18, we're already on the white yarn. So here we are, stitch number 16, and then for stitch number 17, so 18 is this last stitch of the row, which we have to crochet in white, but stitch number 17, that's where we need to do a half double crochet color switch. You'll see this on the pattern as the HDS. So in stitch 17, you're going to crochet a half double crochet, and the very last yarn over pull through is going to be in white. So yarn over and insert your hook into the stitch and pull up your 3 loops. Typically, to close this stitch, you would just yarn over in the blue and then just pull through 3. But since we're doing a color switch, we're going to yarn over with the white stitch, or with a white yarn, sorry. So yarn over, and you're going to pull the white yarn through all 3 stitches. And that's your half double crochet color switch. So that when you're now on stitch number 18, you can crochet that in white. So that stitch. And then just carry your blue yarn when you crochet this last white stitch. So I'm only doing a small sample. Since most of you are probably crocheting the whole blanket, what happens here is you're going to close your stitch, and you're going to do the color switch to blue again, because you're going to have to go back to the beginning of the row. So what I mean by this is you only do the one white stitch, which is the bottom part of the pine tree, and then you have to switch again to your other colors. So in our case, we have to switch again to the blue to repeat stitches 1 through 17, or I guess 1 through 18, and just do that over and over for the entire width of our blanket. So since you're going to continue using the blue, you're going to want to do a color switch here. So just switch to your blue yarn and then yarn over, pull through, and now you're ready to repeat stitches 1 through 18. So here we go. So my sample is just a really short one, so I won't show you more there. But now let's move on to row number 9. So once you complete the entire row number 8, just doing repetitions of stitch 1 through 18 over and over, don't forget the last 2 stitches are your color switch stitches. So stitch number 17 is a color switch, and stitch number 18 is also a color switch, because you have to go back to the blue. Once you get to the end of the row, we're going to move on to row number 9. And row number 9 is going to start with the white stitches. So I need to switch my color, because since I'm only making my the small sample. So let's pretend I finished the blanket, and now I'm going to start on row 9. So we're going to have to work that very last stitch number 18. What is it? It's going to be, I think, like stitch 180. So this is the very last stitch of the blanket. So you've already done this repetition 9 times. You're on the very last one. So the very last stitch of the row, you're just going to yarn over or do your last half double crochet completely in white. So that last yarn over, pull through 3, you're going to do that one in white, since you don't need to do a color switch. So there we go. So that way we're ready to start row number 9 in the color that we need to start in, which is the white. So as you can see, I've got all of my little stitches right here in green. Those I need to crochet them in white. So we need to crochet a total of 4 stitches. So we're going to start with that first one. So half double crochet into the very first stitch. And then we have to do the next few. Remember that you are carrying your blue yarn. So throughout this entire work, you're going to be carrying your yarn, or at least for the work that you're doing on the diagram. All right, so we did 3 half double crochets. For half double crochet number 4, we're going to have to do a color switch, because it's a total of 4 white stitches before we have to switch again to blue. So this is stitch number 4, and we did a color switch. Like that. So here we go. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 4 white stitches, which is exactly what our diagram wanted us to do. So now for this section, we have to crochet 9 stitches in blue. So just go through and count your stitches until we get here to the other side of the little pine tree. So once we get to the 3rd little pine tree. So we've already done our color switch. Now we just have to crochet 9 stitches in blue, which means 8 half double crochets, and then stitch number 9 is going to be a half double crochet color switch. And then we can start with a pine tree. This pattern is really not as complicated as it might seem. You just have to look at the diagram and know when to do a color switch. That's all there's really to it. So you always do a color switch right before the first stitch in your second color. So in this case, I have to do my color switch in stitch number 9, because stitch number 10 is going to be the first stitch in my pine tree. So here we go. So we're on stitch number 9. So just start your half double crochet through my 3 loops, switch to your white yarn, and then a trick I learned here, which is going to help you keep your yarn from tangling. Pick one color. So I'm going to pick blue. So every time I have to do a color switch from my blue yarn, I'm going to hold my blue yarn and lay it over or in front of my stitches, like so. You can just hold it down with your thumb. And then when you do this yarn over, pull through 3 in white, there we go, you can then release your blue yarn, and it's going to keep it from tangling. Otherwise, they're just going to start tangling with each other, and then you're going to have to untangle your work halfway through every row. So Do this with just one color. Don't do it with the white yarn and then the blue yarn. Just pick one color and then that's it. So when we do the next color switch, I'll show you what I mean. All right, so we're here at the bottom part of the pine tree. So we have to do 5 stitches in white, which we're going to have to do a repetition of the white of row number 9. So we're going to continue in white. So don't do a color switch on that very last stitch. So let me complete these really quick. So once you finish these stitches, you're only going to have half of a pine tree. So you will have to go back and repeat this same row, which means when you finish these 5 stitches, you're going to have to do 4 more stitches in white. So it'll be 3 half double crochets in white, and then stitch number 4 will be a color switch. So once you finish this row, go back here, do your 3 first half double crochets, and then your color switch, and then 9, 5, and then 4, 5, and so forth. So you're going to have to repeat this diagram if you're going to be completing the blanket. So don't do a color switch to blue because you're going to have to continue doing your next few stitches all in white. So all 4 of these stitches are in white. So don't do a color switch. So let me show you here what I mean by using the blanket. So since the diagram only shows you half of these 2 trees and then the top tree, so this is what we've completed. You need to complete another repetition. So here are the 4 stitches from the beginning of the row. So they're right there. And then the repetition. So you'll be, here, let me show you here. So you did your 4 for the beginning of row 9, and then you have your 9, and then 5, and then 4, 9, 5, and so forth, so that you complete your entire row. So I hope that made sense. If it didn't, leave me a comment down below, let me know, and I'll try to do a better job explaining it. So let's start with row number 10. So for row number 10, we need to chain 1, and I'm going to start my first half double crochet in white. And since I need 2 white stitches, that means I need to do a color switch. So stitch number 2 is going to be a color switch. So here's what I mean with the other color. So since I didn't pick white, I'm just going to drop it behind my work like that. And then I'll do my color switch. And that will keep your work from not being tangled. I know, it's a weird little trick, but it works. All right, so I need to complete 13 half double crochets. I think it's 13. So I'll work all of these half double crochets in blue, which is from here to here. So I'm going to need to do 12, and then stitch number 13 is going to be a color switch. So here we are. I did 12 half double crochets in blue. This is stitch number 13, or at least I think it's 13, but we're going to do our color switch here. So I'm going to start my half double crochet, and then I'm going to pull my blue yarn in front of my work. So remember, we're trying to keep our yarn from being tangled. So pass it in front of our work, hold it down, and then yarn over, pull through in white. There we go, that'll keep our blue yarn from tangling, and then we just finish the last stitches of the row. So there we go, so there are 3 stitches. And that is row number 10. Remember to do repetitions of row number 10 until you complete your row. So that's all there's really to reading this diagram. Just read through the first few stitches and then just do all your color switches. At the end of the row, always look at the front of the next row, because sometimes you might not need to do another stitch in that same color. So all this is just repetitions of our diagram over and over to complete an entire row. So you'll be able to make this blanket in any size you want. You're not limited to the 180 stitches that we did to begin with. As long as you work in multiples of 18, you'll be able to complete the diagram, and then you just repeat it over and over. So to complete the picture of the pine tree, you just have to go back to the beginning of the row, and that will complete the picture. So that'll complete the image of the pine tree. So after you've done at least another repetition, if you're going to be practicing this first, you'll start to get the hang of it. It's really not that complicated. Like I said before, it's just learning when to do a color switch. those color switch half double crochets are really important because they're going to keep your work clean and neat. If you don't do the half double crochet color switch, your colors are going to start to run together and you won't be able to see a clean, clear image of the pine trees. So it's going to completely distort the image. So make sure you pay attention to your half double crochet color switches. And if you need more help with this, go check out the pattern. It is free, it's on the blog. I go through row by row and I've written down the instructions for every single row. So it has actual stitch counts and it tells you when to do your half double crochet color switch. So go check that out. The link is in the description box below. If you want the PDF pattern, you can purchase it also on the blog, and it will come with a full page diagram. So you'll be able to print that at home and you can make it as big or as small as you want, and it'll be easy to read, so anybody who needs that gets a lot easier. It'll also help you be able to just keep track of what row you're on. So I'm done with the white yarn because we're going to pretend that I finished the diagram. So once you finish the diagram, when you're on row 26, leave a long tail end of the yarn and then you're going to cut it. You won't need it anymore and it's only going to get in the way. So you're only going to work in the blue yarn or whatever color it was that you're using for your background color, because the middle section of the blanket, as you can see here, we only did the diagram for one row. The rest of the blanket is in green until you get to the other end of the blanket. So this is where the number of skeins kind of comes in handy. So I used 4 skeins in the time. Once I started skein number 5, so if you're using the same size skein I'm using, once you get to skein number 5, you're going to crochet 6 rows. So it'll be 6 rows in green, and then you have to switch color, or you won't have enough green yarn to complete your blanket. So start with skein number 5, crochet 6 rows of half double crochet entirely in green, and then you're going to start again with your diagram. So your diagram this time, you're going to have to read it upside down. By this point, you should be really very comfortable reading your diagram because you've already done it several times. So you've already done multiple rows of this and you read it over and over. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab your diagram, and it's easier if you do have the paper copy, and you're just going to turn it upside down like this. So then you're going to start with row number 26. So do 6 rows in green and then start on row 26 so that you immediately start with your color switches. And you're just going to complete the diagram all the way through. At the end though, so this last stitch, so you have 2 rows in blue, or in green in this case, do 1 extra row because we had that row of the chain stitches at the beginning of our project. Crochet 1 additional half double crochet row. So do 3 instead of 2 so that the ends of your blanket are even. So otherwise one of your ends is going to be a little more narrow than the other. Something else to note is that because we're carrying yarn and we didn't cut any of the ends or do anything like that, unless you wanted to, I did have that option written on the pattern, you're going to see the white yarn kind of peek through the edges. I didn't do a border on my blanket. I liked the way this looked. If you don't like it, I'm going to put a link to a video for blanket borders. So I filmed that a few weeks ago. It's going to be right up here, right up on top. I'll put the link up there. Go check that video out. I'll show you how to do 4 different types of borders that you can use for this blanket. Take your pick. If you want to do one, make your border. You're probably going to need at least another skein or 2 of yarn for that. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, what are you waiting for? I post videos every Thursday. They're free crochet patterns. Go check out the blog. The patterns are all free. You can purchase PDF patterns if you want to, and if not, go check it out. And also, let me know what kind of projects you guys want to see. Leave me suggestions down in the comments below. I do read all your comments. Any suggestions you have, I'm happy to make the videos and the patterns for you guys, so just let me know. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like and share, and I'll see you all again next Thursday.